The mortal remains of Mrinal Sen consigned to flames a short while back. His body was carried in the carriage from Priya Cinema to Keoratola burning ghat. As per his wish, there was no flowers, wreath, or any kind of incense. His body was not even wrapped in any party flag. Mrinal Sen, a name for any cinema lovers, is like God. In fact, he was the last living legend of the trio. The other two were Ritik Ghatak and great master Satyajit Ray. Satyajit Ray and Mrinal Sen once were the topics, subject for the media. In fact, Mrinal Sen on many occasions had picked up at Ray. But those criticisms were not just bashing, they had some depth. And today, when Mrinal Sen is no more, the section of media which used to have their editorial fun by bringing out these stories, have realized that the criticism or the so-called picking up were also a class apart. In fact, not any Tom, Harry, Dick can comment or criticize filmmakers of these repute. So one definitely has to be either Satyajit Ray or Mrinal Sen. Well, coming back to the topic, Mrinal Sen had made many cinema, and all the cinema he made are not only masterpieces, but actually were food for thoughts. Some of the cinema attracted immense criticism, like Chorus, which was banned by the government. And when mentioning the controversial cinema, I think one has to refer to Courage, which also happens to be one of my favorite cinema. Of course, we first saw Courage in the early 80s when cinema used to be telecasted, regional cinema used to be telecasted in the afternoon on Doordarshan. Those were the day actually when we had our schooling of good cinema. I think many of you who are watching now, who belongs to the era of 80s and 70s, are basking in the nostalgia as I am. I think that was the time when we actually learned the cinema of Mrinal Sen, Ritik Ghatak, Satyajit Ray, Adur Gopalakrishnan, Shaji Karun, Shyam Benegal, M.S. Sathyu, K. Abbas, to name a few. And of course, in those days, we also had the privilege of watching cinema of then young directors like Gautam Ghosh, Utpalendu Chakraborty. But those were the days when good cinema, realistic cinema, thought-provoking cinema were made, which is today totally gone. I think the last person to make such cinema, to offer such a frame, was undoubtedly Rituparna Ghosh. After Rituparna Ghosh, I think none have taken to those kind of frames. While talking of cinema, of course, I would love to refer to Aparna Sen, whose cinema also have left an indelible mark on all cine lovers. While talking of Indian filmmakers, I am not going into international filmmakers, so I would like to restrain myself to the Indian filmmakers. And today is certainly a day, a solemn day, to recall, remember Mrinal Sen. Today, when media was interacting with the personalities present at the funeral, many of the actors who had deep association with Mrinal Sen recalled their nostalgic moments. But I would like to quote here what filmmaker Sandeep Ray Babuda had to say. He said, the real issue is restoration of cinema. And quite right, because most of the classics made by these stalwarts are in total shambles, and restoration work is being done outside India. So quite naturally, filmmakers like Sandeep Ray stressed on the restoration of old prints. Sandeep Ray also mentioned a very vital point. He said that in the coming days, we might be watching a lot of Mrinal Sen cinema on television as a common practice. But if real tribute is to be paid, then such cinema should continue throughout the year. Also, knowing Sandeep Ray quite well, and I have always found that he is an ardent admirer of cinema on big screen. So he said that most of these cinema of these stalwarts are being watched on small screen, either television or DVD CD. So the need of the hour is to bring out these prints on a bigger platform, and the young generation must watch this cinema at multiplexes and cinema halls. Quite right, because unless and until tributes will be paid on a larger platform, the young generation will not realize or will not come to know about these cinema, because for us, we grew up with these cinema. Well, another thing that I would like to mention here is my respect, my admiration for Mrinal Sen has doubled because the way he showed the simplicity. Also, I would like to refer here because many of the people earlier and even today mocked Mrinal Sen for being communist. But I think Mrinal Sen has slapped on their faces by requesting a simple funeral which his family members carried out. This was also a big slap on the face of West Bengal state government, Trinamool government, and certainly Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee, because she once blacklisted living legend Mrinal Sen for criticizing her making inaugural and closing ceremony of KIFF a public. Mamata Banerjee had blacklisted Mrinal Sen, Soumitra Chattopadhyay and Tarun Majumdar. However, Mrinal Sen and his family has refused all the aids or the recognition by state government. So, they opted for a simple funeral which had taken place a short while ago at Keoratola, Mohashashan or Burning Ghat. Finally, talking of controversial cinema, as I was saying, Courage, one of the best cinema of Mrinal Sen, which actually was also a reference or a mention of child labor in those days. The cinema was based on a real story where in a household, a small boy, a minor boy, working as a domestic servant, domestic aid, was made to sleep in a kitchen, and on that fateful night, there was a leakage of gas which killed this boy. Mrinal Sen quite naturally picked up the subject, but soon he hit the headlines with controversy because many, and I know this personally because many of my relatives had said, and I would quote them in Bengali, তাহলে কি চাকরদের ঘরের মধ্যে শোয়াবো? Should we allow the servants or the domestic help to sleep with us in our bedroom? No, he didn't say that. He actually asked people to be a little humane. Those who have watched the cinema, I'm sure, will recollect what I'm mentioning. It was a wonderful cinema, at the same time slap on the face of pseudo society which boasts of being humane. Courage also hit the headlines because in those days, I remember, as many households had given off to their domestic help servants, because in those days, if you remember, servants used to watch television with the household members. So they feared that if Courage is watched by them, then definitely there will be a sense of revolution or revolt. Well, there are many cinema, and the list goes on and on, which actually had hit the headlines because of controversy. But Mrinal Sen preferred to make such cinema because he lived, he dreamt thought-provoking cinema, and his cinema had a special characteristics of not meeting the conclusion. So what he used to do is he used to keep the end as an open end, like short stories. So it was for the audience to decide what the director actually was thinking as a conclusion. Well, this is certainly a solemn occasion and a sad day, because an era of good cinema, thought-provoking cinema, realistic cinema, cinema which actually provoked the audience to think even after the cinema ended. Such cinema has gone today. Though Mrinal Sen called his movie-making career an end much earlier with Onnobhuban, but still people like Mrinal Sen never stay silent when they see something wrong or something which needs to be criticized, and so he did during the film festival, and state government blacklisted him. So I think such filmmakers are required in the society, because cinema is not just running around trees or making love or dancing to the romantic numbers. Whether it's art, parallel, or neorealistic cinema, as it's often termed, though Satyajit Ray preferred to call his cinema good or bad. In fact, Satyajit Ray always believed that there are two kinds of cinema, good and bad. He very strongly objected to the word parallel or art, because he said any kind of cinema is art form. And so he once said in his interview that some of our young directors think of art too much, while their audiences too little, which was enough to explain that he was not happy with the pseudo filmmakers. Well, all we can say today is, pray today is, may the soul of Mrinal Sen rest in peace. And before summing up, I can only say that we need more young filmmakers who follow the path of Ritik Ghatak, Satyajit Ray, Mrinal Sen, Rituparna Ghosh. The legacy of cinema they have left behind.